All right, so you guys know the model there of tribal agriculture industry, information. Now I guess we're in the information technological revolution. Um, and then the number of household the number of people per household unit got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So once humanity starts changing its belief systems and starts turning to God and to love and starts enacting all these principles that we're talking about, once that happens, then we're going to start returning home in consciousness. Dude, I don't know, man. In consciousness. We're going to start returning in consciousness. So, and and once it starts, it's going to be, I think it's going to be like wildfire, because it's going to be contagious and it's going to be um, the great return home in knowledge. Um, and then once that starts happening, it's the culture is going to start changing. See, now we're in a very interesting period of time because information, like I said, we're in the information age. Information is becoming so global. Like they can't, the institutions, they're gaining all this power, but at the same time, information is becoming readily available to everyone on Earth. So we're creating like one global culture right now. Instead of all these individualized cultures and all their languages and religions and all, everyone's separated and isolated, even though they're trying to do that to keep us separated and isolated, we're not. Like, because you can see a video about people in Italy and Africa and Australia and, China. Well, China's kind of still like bound off in North and South North Korea. But anyway, there's a lot of information available to everyone. And so everyone's starting to gain like knowledge about everyone else. And they're kind of like, hey, everyone's kind of like me. Like, they're not that evil like I've been told. Like, people over there are not like they told me on the news. Like, the news, they say they're all like evil and like. But once I see these YouTube videos and these TikToks of like people in China and in in Russia and in Africa, they're just kind of like I am, and they laugh at similar things that I laugh at, and they have parents just like I do, and they're kind of the same as I am. So people are starting to wake up to that. Like, dude, like we're all the same, man. You know, we're all the same. In the end, we all have very different cultures and very different things going on, but essentially we're all the same. And so once the important thing is once we start changing the culture to this spiritual awakening, to the light, to this to the gospel of love. Like, once we just start believing in love and unity, and then we're going to see the culture change. And once we see the culture change, we're going to start seeing the micro units. This is what I think. This is just speculation. Love can take us wherever it wants to take us, right? And that's the important thing. This is just kind of speculation on how I think these micro units and macro units will work, but the idea is the number of people per household is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Now it's always a trend towards less people per household. Now I think it's two maybe per household in the US, and 100 years ago it was 5 or 6. 200 years ago it was more. And in underdeveloped countries it's always more, higher number than the more technologically advanced people. It's always less and less. So, but once we start changing the culture, I think that number is going to start getting bigger again. Like, people are going to have more people living together per household, but out of choice this time and not out of necessity to be together. So it's the coming and the returning. So I think the households will get bigger out of choice, which in turn, once we change all of our spiritual ignorance, once we become knowledgeable of these things, then what's going to happen to the macro units, the centralization of power, which has been a trend for the last hundreds of years. It's always more and more centralized. The bigger the concentrations of power are getting bigger and bigger, and it's more and more concentrated. They're going to start losing power, and what we're going to see is decentralization, massive decentralization, not centralization anymore. So it's like just power will be, there's going to be less regulations and less, everything is going to become more deregulated and less centralized, and decentralization will happen. So we'll just see less huge conglomerates and more smaller conglomerates and smaller conglomerates and smaller conglomerates. Even though we'll share that cultural unity, because there's no need to have a centralized control system of power. It's just not necessary when you have a evolved population. There's no need. So it's kind of a waste of resources. So that's one of the big things that we'll see once the people start becoming spiritually aware and spiritually conscious of the realities of God and of love. Once they start seeing this, we're going to see deregulation in the political realm. So, and these are some solutions that I think we can adopt like right away, because I think a lot of people are already there. Most people know all these things already. All these things I'm talking about aren't like that far out. Maybe the justice thing a little bit, maybe the human rights thing a little bit. Maybe the fighting evil with love thing a little bit, but most people are already there. Like we've evolved quite a bit. There's a lot of consciousness of this already. So I think we're there already. We're pretty much there, and we have to be there in order to deregulate. Because if not, it's just going to create chaos. Like if we deregulate everything right now in society, and there's no laws at all, no human laws at all, it'll probably be chaotic. But once the spiritual shift takes place, then deregulation is going to be just a natural phenomenon. It's going to be something very natural that's going to happen. So, yeah, deregulation is going to be awesome. Like for example, let's just take the monopoly of the healthcare industry, okay? Healthcare is out of control everywhere. Mostly, I mean, in the U.S. it's out of control, but I hear it's out of control in a lot of places. And it's because of this centralization of power. And what do monopolies do? So let's talk about the monopoly a bit. The monopoly is centralized power, pretty much. It's when there's competition and eventually it creates one centralized power. People get together and want to control their people, and then there's more and more competition, and eventually there's just one company that controls everything. And we see that more and more in every industry. There's only one gold medal, right? I mean, one company becomes the top dog because they use their influence and their power to just gobble up everything around them. And what one of their primary tools is to create more and more barriers to entry. They want more and more barriers to entry. They want more and more regulation so that no one can compete with them. That's what they want. They don't want competition. They want to be the only one. And so they create more regulation, more laws, more red tape, more this, more this, more this. So no one can compete with them because a little person can't get into this industry. In healthcare, who can if you wanted to make a hospital now, can you? I can't I can't imagine how much red tape there is to start a hospital. There's probably 1,000 laws and regulations and this and that. It's crazy, right? And so that's one of their main tools to stay in power, is just that constant, so many laws and regulations to actually do something useful. And healthcare is one of our basic needs, right? We all need health, and we all need. And there's so much ignorance just about healthcare in general, and nutrition, and we're not even going to get into all that. But let's just say, you didn't need any. There were no laws like for if you wanted to open a hospital now, and you had no titles, and you weren't a doctor, but you thought you could cure people, and you could just do it. And there's no laws against it, and you could market yourself, and you could, you can't say lies, obviously, like, but you can say, like, hey, I'm a hospital, and I can. It would be crazy, right? It's, most people don't even consider those possibilities. Like, no, that's stupid. But I think that's going to be the way out of this once we start gaining that knowledge. That, why not? Why can't I open a doctor's office? Why do I have to go through, I don't know how many years of education, right? From medical schools, which teach us, half the stuff is baloney anyway. Why do we have to necessarily go through that path in order to open a medical practice? You don't, right? I mean, if the institution is so good at curing people, and they have all these regulations and all these, and they're so good at it, then why can't they have a little competition? Like, and why are there so many sick people? They're not good at it, obviously, and they want more sick people because that's what keeps their business going. Obviously, we know all these things. So deregulation is going to be amazing when it starts happening. Like, anyone can open a doctor's office, and anyone can market anything they want, and people aren't stupid anymore. There's information. If some crazy person starts, so this is what goes on in your brain. Well, what if there's a crazy person who just starts recommending crazy things as a doctor? People will start noticing they get bad ratings on their Google profile, and no one's going to go there. That's what's going to happen. That's what happens with if you open up competition, let people compete, let people do things. So competition's a good thing. In a sense, that's not what I said last video, but in this sense it is. If there's a need, we have to enact on it, and there is a need for good healthcare now, at a low cost, and we can achieve that. There's so many good people out there that can cure people, especially on little things. And there's so many holistic people, but they have to go through years and years of medical practice, and they can't do it from their house. They have to have a medical establishment. There's so many red tape that they have to go through. But if we just had that, and then we can go. So if that happened, it would create a revolution in the healthcare industry. It would be a revolution. Anyone can. So imagine a law came out that said anyone can practice medicine without any certificates, without any titles, without any rules, and you don't even have to declare taxes on it because it's a basic human right. That would be crazy. That would be, even if a city adopted that law, it would be a revolution. And it would probably have the best healthcare in the world. Because we're not saying that the institution can't practice medicine. We're just saying anyone else can. So the institutions can keep on having their doctors and their insurance and their hospitals. You can still have that, and people can choose to go there if they want. But if they want to go to this other alternative, they can do that too. And they're going to start finding out that this other alternative, people are going to start getting healthier than what we're in now. So when you say, oh, the evil neighbor is going to start opening a medical practice that's going to start doing bad things, well, guess what? That's already happening. That's already happening. Like, evil's already taken over a lot of these institutions, and they're doing evil things. They're making us sicker. They're making us, so it's already happened. So when you say, just like so we can take the same thing in the food industry, right? So the food industry, there's all this red tape about food, and you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, right? I can't open a restaurant in my living room and serve people because there's laws. You have to have a commercial kitchen, you have to have this, you have to have that. The government just wants all, and these are all tools of the institution to stay in power. It's not to help us. So in the food industry, imagine you could anyone can sell food, let's say with no taxes, and you can sell anything from your home and there's no rules. That would open the gates, and that would be an amazing thing. It would open the gates. I could go eat in my neighbor's house and have dinner there, and I can pay her for it. That would be awesome. And then people obviously are always thinking, well, what if your neighbor is going to poison you or anything? Dude, they're already doing that. They're already poisoning us. The big institutions are already poisoning us with their dyes and their foods and their GMOs and their, all of these crazy things. They're already poisoning us. So if your neighbor starts poisoning you, out of 10 neighbors, there's going to be one that's going to poison you. But 9 are going to be awesome. They're going to do good things. And then everyone's going to know about that one neighbor who poisons people. They're not going to go there. So deregulation, I think we're ready for it already, but we might not be. I think we still have a ways to go, and people. But if you look at the same thing in every industry, if you start deregulating and allowing for freedom, actual freedom, not the freedom they promise, but just, hey, if you want to sell things, sell it. And you don't have to have any permits or any of this or any of that. Building codes and don't even get me started on the construction industry. But anyway, I think I'm just rambling here.